So perhaps, Tricia, you could begin by telling us a bit about the 510 project.
Yes, the 510 project began about 18 months ago, and it was started because we wanted to address some issues around improving services, around self-evaluation, how staff did self-evaluation, and we wanted to have a look at outcomes specifically. Did all staff understand what they were looking for outcomes, for making a difference in their areas and through their work? And we just generally felt that we should look at having a programme of activities and materials where we could introduce more CPD, which would benefit our services at the end of the day. Behind that was the idea that we wanted staff to understand every process of self-evaluation.
And how long has the project been on the go?
About 18 months now.
Okay.
We've had a group up and running.
So, 18 months on, what's the project achieved then?
Well, I think it's achieved its original aims. Some of the original aims were around improving understanding of the processes of self-evaluation, and I think many staff would say that certainly in terms of outcomes, understanding what outcomes are, outputs, what as well, how to assess their own work, how to self-evaluate their own work. I think staff can also use measurement tools more confidently. So in these areas, we've seen differences. I think we've seen differences in Perth and Cross even through recent inspection report. For instance, highlighted an improvement in that indicator, the 510 indicator.
And is that how the project got its name, from How Good Is Our Community Learning?
It did. It's a shortened name, really. It was started off as improving services, but because it particularly focused on the indicator 510, we just picked that up and it was called the 510 group.
Could you tell us about the toolkit and what's in the toolkit?
Okay. The toolkit again has been produced by the group of staff and managers meeting quite regularly, and it began with a game which we've just called the Leap game, and that lays out each of the areas of Leap, from outcomes to outcome indicators and outputs and so on, right through Leap, with cards that fit with the game, so that practitioners or any member of staff can get together and actually work through the process of Leap, usually with a project that's very related to their own context.
Janet, you as a practitioner, you participated in using the toolkit and the Leap game.
Yep.
Can you tell me what that was like for you?
It was good to have an informal look at, because as Tricia had pointed out earlier, when you go to these training events, it can be a bit dry, people are a bit sleepy and you're not really focused on it. But when you're actually using a CLD approach and the game, which is what the game is using, an informal CLD approach, it's actually participatory, so you're actually feeling like you're contributing and getting something out of it. So, for me, that's what made it more engaging, I feel like.
And have you been able to take what you learned from using the toolkit to improve your use of LEAP
Yes.
for your work?
When I did it, I went back and looked at all my LEAPs again
Okay,
and said, is that an outcome?
right.
And I changed what I felt needed to be changed.
Okay.
You know, for my whole year's work plan is done in a LEAP forum, and then I have individual LEAPs for projects. So I looked at everything that I had and reevaluated them all and made them what I felt were improvements to them. So it absolutely had an impact on me as a practitioner.
Okay, so talk us through how it works and how does the LEAP game work?
Well, the LEAP game works by you've got the template, as you've already seen, and that has steps which take you through the LEAP steps, and you have a scenario, and you have some information to back up that scenario, for example a community profile, and then you have actors in that, like, so I am the community learning worker, you are, the community member, you are the health worker, for example, and you would then, have a look at this, discuss where are we at, what do you think are the outcomes, what do you think is up there, coming down, and is coming from the community, and then we agree that. But it's also got this thing called a chance card in there, and the chance card is a bit like your potential barrier. So, we've agreed all this, but this has just turned up, so what we're going to do. So then you would negotiate that again and look, how we're going to fit this in. But then the next person would take it, and that would throw another barrier. And for me that was great, because that is what happens. You get these barriers all the time, these things that come up for people as individual workers, as community members, or as a geography, it can come up. So then you would move on, as that's agreed, you would move on to the next process, and you would take chance card throughout, and then eventually as a group you will get to the end of that process.
From your use of it and for your experience of it, how transferable is it?
I think it's transferable for the community land development partnerships and then the geographies of Perth and Kinross, and also in other areas. I've used it before, a similar model before in literacy and numeracy work, and also we're doing a training for part-time youth workers where that kind of model was used. It was around issue-based youth work. What is issue-based youth work? What if this was to happen? And that would be like the same idea as the chance card. So it's absolutely, this model is absolutely transferable to fit lots of different types of training.
I would agree. I think it could be used in different authorities. CLD itself uses LEAP, as far as I'm aware, quite generally across Scotland, and it would be quite transferable in that way, in that it's based on our how good is our community learning and development to outcomes from delivering change, all the background materials that we all use as part of our self-evaluation process. So it's adaptable to what any team or group would want to do, and adaptable to other partners as well.